The Princeton Jane Doe, identified as Mercedes Clement. On the night of October 11, 2020, a 25-year-old mother named Mercedes Clement didn't come home. On the fourth day she was gone, without a word from her, a letter arrived at her house. They used the information on her registration to report that a tow yard had towed her car. This happened on the 12th. Mercedes' mother went to the tow yard and picked up the car. Once she looked inside the car, she discovered that Mercedes' keys, her wallet, her purse, and her bra were inside. She backtracked to where the car had been picked up at the Cocoa apartment building, and she was able to obtain surveillance video. It showed Mercedes going into an apartment in her hometown of Dallas, Texas, and she was with a man named Tanner Lawson. While the video showed him walking in, mysteriously it had been jammed for a half hour where no video was recorded, and there's no indication of Mercedes ever leaving. As they began searching for Mercedes, they found out that she had called two friends saying she was scared and requesting a ride to her car. They believe this indicates she was likely taken somewhere alive after she left the apartment building.
And then there's Mercedes' belongings found in her car.
It's the same purse you see her walking inside the apartment complex with. So either she brought it back or the people who took her put it in the car, and their intentions were to come back to the car, but the car was towed before they were able to do that.
It was disconcerting that she left behind a purse she was carrying in her car, as well as her wallet and bra. There was a lot of trafficking taking place in the area, so there was a concern that she had been kidnapped for that reason. Her family was out searching for her daily. Her mother would go on to describe Mercedes as being a gift, saying she had a huge heart and she did everything she could to help those around her, including saving money to donate to the homeless. She also very much loved her son. She would never purposely leave him. The best lead seemed to be 37-year-old Tanner Lawson, but he refused to answer any questions the police had. Lawson is currently in jail for an unrelated reason. He so far refused to answer any questions, and at one point Mercedes' mother called him and tried to get him to tell her where her daughter was. He refused to answer. He says he doesn't know anything. He doesn't really remember her because nothing happened that night. Tanner has a long history of being in trouble with the law. His extensive criminal record includes charges for theft, felon in possession of firearms, possession of meth, evading arrest, robbery, and DWI. In February of 2022, 16 months after Mercedes disappeared, her remains were found in a wooded area of Princeton, Texas. This is about 50 miles away from where Mercedes went missing. They were found around Morning Dove Lane and County Route 447 near Lavon Lake. It's unclear why it took another 8 months, but they eventually compared the dental x-rays of Mercedes and the Princeton Jane Doe. Her family is grieving, and her son desperately misses his mother. They need to know what happened. Crime Stoppers has a $5,000 reward. If you know anything at all, please call the number on your screen. Mercedes left behind a 6-year-old son. She was missing for 2 years and unidentified for 8 months. Had she lived, she would be 26 years old today. The Cape Girardeau County John Doe, identified as Everett Guy Travis. In April of 1981, the remains of a man were found by a mushroom hunter just off Interstate 55 near Oak Ridge, Missouri. They were skeletal, and an analysis at the time indicated a male of European descent who stood approximately 5'10" and was between 20 and 40 years old. Not all of his remains were found. His skull wasn't recovered until 1988. It was found in the same general area. They did find clothing. He'd been wearing green pants, a khaki shirt, black loafers, and they were adorned with a metal buckle. He died from a GS wound from a small caliber. Initial attempts at extracting DNA and developing an STR profile were unsuccessful. There were problems getting usable DNA, though eventually a mitochondrial DNA profile was entered into CODIS. This profile, however, can't be used for genetic genealogy. They ran an isotope test, and they did some testing to see if they could get an SNP profile, which would be suitable then to search for his family. It worked, and the amazing thing is they got a match right away, a sibling match. And once again, Everett Guy Travis had his name. It turns out Everett was a 26-year-old Air Force veteran when he went missing in 1977. He was known in his family for being a bit of a good Samaritan, and he tried to constantly help others in need. He had picked up a hitchhiker named Kenneth Daring in Blytheville in June of 1977. Witnesses had come forward at the time saying they saw Daring speaking to Everett. That was the last time he was ever seen. Shortly after this, Kenneth Daring was caught trying to sell Everett's vehicle in Sikeston, Missouri. The person to whom Daring was trying to sell it contacted the authorities. The man was behaving very oddly, and in the car were Everett's belongings as well as a firearm. More than one witness came forward at the time. Daring had even confessed to taking the life of Everett, but he would give different accounts of where the remains were, and so they couldn't recover them. This is one of the more rare cases where a man was tried without a body. I know we've had discussions on this before on here, but let me know what you think. Should someone be tried without a body? It seems like usually the consensus is no, although honestly I think in this case it was a pretty good call. Kenneth Daring was convicted of taking Everett's life. He died in prison in 2012 without ever telling the truth about what happened, and funding for this case was provided by donors to the Southeast Missouri State University Foundation. Everett Guy Travis was missing for 45 years, and he was an unidentified John Doe for 41. He was just 26 when his life was taken. Had he lived, he'd be 71 today. The Brazoria County Jane Doe, identified as Alisha Marie Cooks, who went by the name of Lisa. On December 16, 1985, like way too many men and women before her, a Jane Doe was found when two hunters discovered skeletal remains near Peatland, Texas, approximately 50 yards east of the intersection of County Road 59 and County Road 94. The woman found wore a size small. She had a square-faced watch with a maroon leather band and HIS brand blue jeans with a 28-inch inseam. They believed her to be 17 to 26 and maybe 5'6" tall. The cause of death was a GS wound to the head. Over the years, a number of recreations were done, but no one came forward. They did, however, have DNA on file. As mentioned in some other videos, a family member should always submit their DNA to NamUs if they're missing somebody. It's the first place the John and Jane Doe DNA is uploaded to. In this case, there was a positive match right away. The Brazoria County Jane Doe was Lisa Cooks. She was 16 when she disappeared from Houston, Texas. For the last 36 years, she was only 20 miles away from home. The person who did this has never been charged and is still being sought by the police. Lisa Cooks went unidentified for 37 years. As always, thank you so much for watching. The current goal for the channel is 20,000 subscribers. Please consider subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss new episodes. Thank you so much to everybody commenting. Even with just an emoji, it really has made a big difference. Without it, there isn't a channel, so thank you guys so much. Take care of yourselves and each other.